like in grad school, and then my work, as I was living in Dallas, doing all the graphic design and spending pretty much all of my time when I came home or on the weekends, painting on other paintings, like trying to make a really solid series of work, because while I was doing all the design or illustration stuff, like I was always, like, any free time, always sketching or getting ideas that I could go home and paint. So for me, it was all about trying to create a strong series to pitch to a gallery or an art director somewhere else that would hire me, which never happened until I got out here and knew somebody in the music industry, like, that was a director, and they would give me all those design jobs. But the funny thing about that was it was never painting. It was always something digital, because they have to reproduce it, and it was really difficult to accomplish the idea as a painting on canvas and then have it photographed and then, deal with how long. Oh, man, it takes 2 months to do that. Well, we need it in 3 days. So, of course, it's going to be digital, because that's the fastest way. And, man, back in the day, there was barely a Wacom. How do you say it? Like like you couldn't really draw with a pen. A stylus didn't exist. It was all like with a mouse. So it's all this, like, designy digital stuff that was before it could look like, you were painting on your computer. So yeah, I got so far off of that question. I don't know where I was going.
No, that's good.
Feel free to remind me, because I'll just, at this point, I don't know where I'm going. So.
Any other questions?
Yeah. It seems like you're interested in this kind of overarching thing that ties all of your work together. Have you ever, or is there kind of like a cutoff where you feel like you've gotten too far from when you made that work, or it's just not strong enough, or you've gotten so much better that it's not relevant anymore?
No, I mean, the series I've been working with, I think I began it with such an organic, hope of a concept that I knew that it would unfold to what end I didn't know. So I just see it growing in these different sections, like as my life changes or as things in my life, help dictate where I'm going to go. I noticed that the work is different. Like at one point it was really young and innocent, and I was just like trying to put this love story of a little boy and a little girl trying to work it out. And then you see the next stage, 2 or 3 years later, and it's gotten really intricate. And then a year later, it's gotten really dark, and I'm exploring these weird, like spiritual realms and questions that, lie in the shadows. And then after that, it starts to get really intricate again. And then, it just seems that life is really helping to shape where the work goes. And that's what I've wanted to leave to chance almost. I mean, you can't really force something like this, like a body of work into 5 years, because I tried. I thought, 5 years, I'll create a trilogy of work. It'll be great. It'll be this cool wavelength. It'll go up and it'll go down and it'll go up again, and we'll end it there, and that'll be bam. We'll have 3 books and all this shit. It didn't happen like that. Like, life doesn't allow for that at all. So 10 years later, I'm looking at it going like, wow, okay, I feel like I'm still on phase 1. And within phase 1, I see all those things I thought I was going to see in a much shorter time period, but in a much more detailed delivery. Like, I can really see the intricacy of it and enjoy, like, the patchwork that, like, makes this interesting rug or quilt or, this tapestry. When I step back, I can see it a lot better. So it's let me just open myself up to the possibility that this could go on more than 10 years to 15 years. I love to keep it in a neat little increment of 10 years, but it's not. So it's going to move on. And wherever it ends, I guess it ends, or it doesn't. Maybe I never get out of the first phase of it and I just learn as much as I can and then I'm done. And someone else maybe takes on the next part. Who knows? There's arguments for once you've done something really strong and accomplished what you have to say, maybe you should just share that with others and let them take it where it needs to go, because it's out of your control at some point. So for me, I'm just trying to say what I got to say and hope it's interesting at the end of the day. Hope that what that body of work is, or I think it means, helps somebody else, accomplish something meaningful, or they see where it fits, and hopefully it is meaningful,
How do you deal with an artist block?
An artist blog or block?
Block. Not a blog.
I kind of I noticed I would get stuck if I tried to like really hammer in on one thing, and I find that I like different things open. So I'll have several canvases around or pieces of paper, and if one thing is stuck, I move to something else. Now, when you're under a deadline, that can be really difficult because they expect something at a certain time, and you just have to trust yourself. I think that's one of those things I had to kind of learn along the way is what my gut is saying. Like, what are my instincts really trying to tell me, and when is it good, and when is it bad, and when can I trust them? When can I not trust my instincts? And, if I'm really tired or if I'm thinking about something else, I totally can't trust what I'm trying to do. So try to make sure I've gotten some rest and separate myself from it to whatever degree. If it's like a tight deadline and I can squeeze in a 30 minutes or an hour nap and rest my mind, I see it totally differently when I get back to it. And I think that's hugely important, is just knowing when to walk away rather than just screw up the whole thing and have to go to square one. Just walk away when you feel tense about it and just come back, hopefully with a little bit of freshness for perspective, and see where it's weak and make it strong.
Anybody else have questions?
What are some of your influences or artists that you look at when you're having trouble figuring out how something should look or get some inspiration?
Wait, I caught part of that. I think it got kind of choppy.
Oh, like what are some artists that you look at or for inspiration or something, like if you get stuck on how something should look, like what do you look at?
Like early on, like I've always had kind of the same influences, but at a certain point, I just stopped looking at things and started trying to concentrate on what I was doing. I know somebody famous out there has a saying about that. I know I've probably heard that and took it as advice, but at some point, I also I filled my brain in all the influence spaces that I needed, I guess, and then at some point, I just had to forget it all and then try to work on making something interesting and original and not be too reliant on peers or predecessors, because that can be there's so much derivative art and it goes to a certain degree, whether it's fine art or illustration, but it's never going to be anything but a really nice knockoff. So if you can do something original, by all means do it, but have an influence. I've always felt that's just an influence. That's just a diving board or a place to go from, a place to leave. I grew up at a certain place, so I'm influenced there, but I left because that's all the living I could do there. I couldn't be an artist there. I couldn't, support whatever kind of life I wanted to have and do this by being anywhere but here. So in the beginning, I also I read everything I could on surrealism, or then I found art history, books, and I read all those I could. So there was every influence I could possibly get, but I was really attracted to certain things that helped develop where I wanted to go, or felt I could be more eloquent at saying because I immersed myself in it, I guess. So it's a really personal thing for every artist, for every person. But for me, I started with those original surrealists, and I got really influenced by Salvador Dali and how crazy he was, and just I can't even believe there's argument as to whether he painted all that stuff himself, but it's amazing. And then Magritte and Hans Belmer, and then finding out that they wrote things and learning about their history and then the history of what was going on around them. It's all influential. So it just really helped open up my mind to seeing art and artists in a different way.